I don't know that they're necessarily speaking about the value of the credential.
Could be. One of the charts they said is that this year the enrollments in accounting were down. And a lot of other things too. That, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, I guess.
I lost the connection and I reconnected through the VPN kicked out like it always does. So.
Okay, I did get an email from Carla. She said, okay, so I don't know. Hopefully that means she's.
That means she's going to try it.
Yeah.
Quiet.
You know, you'd think after 15 months we get this technical stuff down.
Well, perhaps I've noticed this past few days, I don't know why, the internet service has gotten a bit dodgier.
Huh. Yeah, because I mean, any reopening, you'd think there'd be less traffic. Who knows?
I always feel like the internet's worse in the summertime, especially when it's hot. I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but it does seem like.
Good.
Yeah.
I've been going into the office a few days a week for the last month, and I was amazed at how quickly the volume of traffic is already growing.
Really?
Yeah, my trip in today was on 84 was slow. That stretch, yeah. People heading off of 84 going to 91 north. Just everybody else is flying. My lane, which I peel off into Hartford, is part of that. It took a while. Oh, I did not miss this.
Well, I'd say that I think we've probably got, and not necessarily with your system, a technical issue, because Marcia's not here. And she's religious about letting us know if she's not going to be here.
You're right.
And getting on time. Looks like Dan's in the office too.
Yes, I just had to unmute myself. We've been back in the office. How far? We opened up last July. We've been going back. Based on the size, though, depending on the office, they had to break individuals into certain parts of certain teams, and then one weekend they were allowed to go into the office, and the following weekend they would have to work from home remotely. But my office here in Westport, there's only 4 of us, so I've been in the office 3-4 days a week since last July. So
I talked to an old colleague of mine back several months ago, and he said he went in the office because it was the safest place he could go because the volume of people was down so much.
yeah, most of our offices, the capacity was only between 15 to 20%. So now we're opening it up where I believe next week the requirement is at least 2 days a week they have to come into the office, and we'll just go from there. September may change, but for now it's just going to be a gradual, come back for everybody.
Yeah, my wife has been going into the office this whole time. Oh,
Tim looks like Tim is on. Okay. Hey, Tim might be audio only, but that's okay. He's traveling.
Sorry, no.
Oh dear. Does that count?
Yes. Yeah, because if we have trouble, if it comes to votes, he can always go in through the chat as well. Oh, here's Carla, so we're good.
Wonderful.
I can hear everyone.
Ah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Carla.
Okay, great.
And you sound a little bit like you're talking underwater, Tim, but we can hear you.
Good.
Okay, then at 10:18, we'll call ourselves to order. And first item would be the minutes of the previous meetings. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes from the May 11th meeting? I would just have one, and that's the CPA designation for me on the board members present. Any others?
I'm good with them.
Good. Well, hearing nothing, would anybody like to propose that a motion that we accept the minutes as amended for the title Mike position?
So moved, Carla Fox.
Second?
I'll second it, Pete Niedermeyer.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. We'll take a vote. Everybody can raise their hand except for, I guess, Tim and Carla.
Aye.
Aye.
Ah, Tim, you're through clear now.
Good.
And congratulations on your new status as a retired.
Thank you very much.
But still active on the board. Okay. So we're going on to, I think in the future, we probably should just move the comments or concerns down further unless Bonnie has something that she'd like to bring in immediately make sure we discuss.
No, thank you.
Okay. Old business, legislative update, Frank.
Hey, our entire legislative package passed, and we will be one of my jobs this afternoon will be getting the word out, to people for these and the regs. We'll get to that next. So, but just quickly, section 20-281C, subsection C, has been changed. So now, so anyway, so the candidates who to take the exam, just to take the exam, need not necessarily have their their degree yet. They will just need to have completed 120 semester hours of education. They'll still need the degree to get the designation in the end, but to start taking the exam, they just need to get the hours in. So that puts us similar to Massachusetts and some other surrounding states. Section 20-281K subsection C is changed to now that licensees need to hold on to their work product and work papers for 7 years unless there's a requirement to hold them longer. Let's see, then Pete, you'll be happy that the 20-281L, we removed A and B. So this is the one to do with the commissions and all. So that's gone through. And
How many years has that been, Pete? I'm sorry, Frank, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's just some technical things and all there. So anyway, so that got through. Everything we asked for this year did go through. So that was good.
Very good. And I guess any comments or questions for Frank on legislative update? And hearing none, revisions to regulations.
Yes, excellent. The regulations are now in effect. This was as of the end of last week, I guess, the beginning of last week. So somebody else will be getting the word out, because I'll just jump to the one that's been out there the longest. We can now allow continuous testing in the state.
Right.
We are now not one of the few holdouts in the country. So that is good news. But otherwise, the rules of conduct in 20-280-15C have been changed. Generally, I'll go through all of it to incorporate the Code of Professional Conduct from the AICPA in a number of different areas. So as from an enforcement standpoint, we feel that's going to make things a little easier on our end. The legal form of a firm has been more generalized than it had been, which before there were certain forms like LLCs that were not technically, well, they were available, but it just read funny. The examination, again, this is the one, put the 120 hours in there. It's in the statute, so that's not necessary. And the other good thing, looking forward to the transition, the CPA transition, which will take place in January 2024. We are out ahead of that, fortunately, in the sense that we've taken out the names of the different sections. So now it's just the content is the exam shall test the knowledge and skills required for performance as a newly licensed certified public accountant. Examination will include the subject areas of accounting and auditing as related knowledge and skills the board may require. So we don't have to change that. It stays, that way. And so when we'll get to this later too, when the transition comes and there's the new exam with the 3 core sections plus the 3 disciplines, we don't have to worry about specific names to the sections. Although, so that's good. And then, as I mentioned, section E2 has been removed to say so the old section was the candidates cannot retake a failed exam section during the 3-month examination period. We just removed that, which allows continuous testing. So that was all for the good. So we were.
And I'll just interrupt just for a second to note for the minutes that Martha Triplett has joined us, and glad to see you here. You haven't missed much because apparently half the board had technical problems this morning, so we didn't
Oh, well,
start
that's
until,
strange that I didn't have technical problems because I usually do. But sorry about that. I apologize. I had another Zoom meeting. So this is my second one already.
But yeah, that's what I have on the regs.
excellent.
And as I mentioned, and we were before the meeting, that of course NASBA throws new things at us all the time, but at least for now, I think we're okay. So we'll see what happens. But it's good. It was good. We were able to get that continuous transition language taken, necessary to take out put in with these, and that was done just in March or April. So that happened quickly, and it was good that we were able to get that in as part of this process. Since the other process, I submitted those in the fall of 2019, and we finally got it through. So it's good to get that done. And actually, I'm going to just get on the record. I want to thank Jerry Padula from our office, who helped shepherd it through these last few months, because we ended in a sprint. So that was great.
Good, thank you. Then I guess we should move on to, sorry to keep you on here, Frank, but move on to new business.
Okay, did you want us to put your, a lot of these are going
Yeah,
to be touched on with yours.
I can
Do you
move into
want
that.
to go ahead with the regional?
Yeah, just on the regional meeting, there's a huge amount going on, more than I've seen in a long time. But for accepting remote test scores, 54 of 55 states and jurisdictions have agreed and passed appropriate, done whatever they need to do to say yes. Colorado has not yet responded. It has not said yes or no. Let's see. There was a big mention, the discussion of the CPA pipeline, attraction of candidates being an issue, not only in numbers, but as in diversity. Apparently that there has not been a whole lot of progress on those goals. And there is a shortage, serious shortage of CPAs entering the profession. That, by the way, the final meeting was a meeting of the CPA regional chairs to just talk about what had come through. And there is apparently, I don't know for those, in practice right now, we're seeing it, Pete, Dan, Bonnie, whether the society, et cetera, but whether it's CPA or all, but there was a concern that part of it was just the salaries offered were not adequate relative to the number of hours that you put in and the alternatives that they have. There was a real concern that the extra 30 hours from the now longstanding 120 to 150 hours was not contributing to professional capabilities. And therefore, people were unwilling to put them in, so to speak. But that seems to vary by states and the regulations as to what is acceptable. It shouldn't be, but it is. But it's an imposed cost, which is seriously depressing the income. And one thing, Florida said a 4-year degree in finance, cybersecurity, et cetera, you start with 80K. CPA with 5-year degree and a high-risk exam, in Florida, you're only making 55K a year. So that's not helping input at all. So I don't know whether, but the problems seem to be nationwide, but varying very much by state. And okay. Other legislation, international progress has been slow because the pandemic. US is working on an agreement and with some good hopes of success with the UK, which is more probable because it's not in the EU right now. Individual mobility, all but Hawaii, Guam, and there was an additional territory I missed it when they defined CNMI, and I have absolutely no idea. I think the MI is Marshall Islands. But where am I there? There was a real concern through the various state boards that with individual mobility and the amount of online virtual work that people were escaping accountability. Nobody really knew what CPA Society's ethics or state board was covering them, and whatever. There was a big concern that maybe things had to be tweaked for that. There was some clarity be required. Firm mobility without requiring registration is through on 3118 that still require firm registration, including us, California and New York. I don't know about us right now because of the pickup, but the updated definition of a test is all but Hawaii and whoever CNMI is. By the way, Hawaii has replaced us as the clearly as the laggard on getting regulations passed. They were the scofflaw on virtually everything. Firm ownership to make it so they only required a majority CPA, all but Hawaii, CNMI in New York. Legislation has been filed in New York, and 15 states have no reciprocity of licensure, including California and New York. And then there was a lot of discussion on something that doesn't seem to be a big issue here. And that is when we got into the regulatory reform and et cetera, John Johnson's presentation, criminal conviction legislation as to whether somebody could be licensed after a criminal conviction, whether moral turpitude should be deleted in various regulations or fresh start regulations. It's a real hodgepodge, and I really can't update. It's like people are going in a lot of different directions, and we seem to be one of the states that doesn't seem to have a difficulty separating protection of the republic, of the public, excuse me, not republic, protection of the public and, protection of, quote, business, exclusion of business. We seem to be in a good place there. And then a lot of discussion of universal licensure legislation. When we got to the uniform CPA exam, IFRS is being deleted because it just wasn't adopted that much in the US. Estate taxation is being removed. There is a timeline to produce the core from the CPA evolution, and there should be a survey on the core coming out imminently. It says, quote, 1 July or about. I haven't seen it. Have you, Frank? Or is anybody? So it could, and it will, whenever it comes out, it will be open for 60 days. And they're hoping for very strong participation from state boards and societies, Bonnie. So I don't know when that comes up and we take a look at it, we might want to call a special meeting to discuss or something. And for the pilot, for the evolution and for remote testing is going slowly with a delay in transition. There's certain technological issues that they're working through. Those weren't that particularly clear, but let's see, there's also timing of the rollout. They don't want to roll out the core too early because people will jump in and take the core and they only have so much time before they have to take a discipline test before the core would disappear, and they don't want to start out with people getting trapped in in something that they can't accomplish because we roll out the core too early for when the disciplines will be available. Let's see, the other COVID challenges were basically, you know, when people are working remote, and there was a huge number of people from the northern states moving down to Florida because they were going to be working remotely during the winter. You know, they didn't know where anybody's feet were on the ground. Where are they subject to discipline if they misbehave? One of the serious considerations, Carla, you might have comments on this, on CPA evolution, there's a question as to whether academia and colleges and universities have enough time to expand the educational offerings required in time for the first testing. And data analytics. The problem with data analytics is there seems to be a severe shortage in people qualified to teach it that are available.
Yeah, can I
Yes, you
say
may.
something? Okay, UConn has been a leader in data analytics. We've had a program for over 10 years. We have really qualified faculty. So that I do not think is going to be a problem for UConn. But there are many other feeder schools that I cannot say the same. It's very hard to recruit people, although it's getting easier. But for example, Eastern Connecticut, I know, is beginning to have a strong program. But I think if you go nationwide, that is a concern. I'm not sure, and I don't know, I mean, I would suspect in Connecticut, the other academic institutions have had an opportunity to come along. So, you know, as a former interim dean of the School of Business at UConn, I'm not worried about that. But I think in some places it would be a legitimate concern.
Okay, thank you. That might be apparently so. So sort of the second to last thing is all regions were very supportive of evolution, and a lot of regions were very concerned about being able to timely be ready for it, including from bridge to old to new. You know, I don't know whether in all of the regions of the country we're going to have somebody that's got at least one major educational institution that's going to be up on the data analytics, for example, which seemed to be the big hole of anything. Finally, when Ken Bishop gave his ending, the NASBA intends to do the annual meeting in person from October 31 to November 3rd. And they wanted to get a sort of a hand count of how many states thought they were going to be able to have attendees there. I said on the basis of absolutely no knowledge whatsoever that I thought Connecticut could or would, absent an additional wave. One Western state said, well, we're in the West, and we seem to all be at war with each other as to where we'll let people go from their government, so we'll let you know. And the person from Oregon said, well, yeah, I'll let you know as the first riot in Portland breaks out over it. So, but if anybody is interested, please let Frank know in going to this to the annual meeting. Usually we've basically sent two and sometimes two plus the director, or two including the director. I'm not sure what it's going to be. It's usually dependent on how many scholarships we get.
And John, remind me, that's in San Diego?
That's in San Diego. I lived there for 2 years in the Navy. It's a nice place. And that is it. I apologize. My note taking is not even remotely close to the Mark Aronowitz standard. And some of the things, I didn't even touch accreditation for colleges and universities because one, I was totally lost on it, as apparently Frank was. And two, I don't think we seem to have a problem. The problem with it, since some states seem to have, as to whether, you know, a resume or you know, graduating from a program in the universities that we see our candidates have is a problem. So that's it. A bit of a meandering, but yes, Frank.
Okay, no, I'll just add for everyone's knowledge that John Schuyler was voted to be the alternate to the nominating committee for the Northeast region. So that went through. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I've got to give Dan Dustin a call back because he sent me a long email about the responsibilities, and I got to say, you know, do it in English, Dan. He's usually very good. Okay, I guess now we're on to, well, we're back to new business, and I'm not sure whether we need to, you have anything else to add on the remote testing, accreditation, and CPA exam?
Well, on the remote testing, it's a little bit, because I also attended, they had NASBA had a separate remote testing meeting earlier in June. So a couple of more notes just to fill in a couple of blanks maybe. As you mentioned, though, they're basically slowing things down because of unspecified technical issues. And so that is definitely the case. But once they get those through, but they'll go ahead with a pilot. But if they don't take care, they did specify, this is Colleen Conrad, the Executive Vice President and COO of NASBA, and Mike Decker from the AICPA, but they both were agreeing that they're not, unless they get whatever these technical issues are taken care of, they're not going to go forward with this.
Right.
With
I think her exact words were, if anybody's expecting me to give you a firm date for when we're going to go forward, you're not going to get it.
Right. And if they do get as far as the pilot, they are in they do have the planning in place, so it's not like they're going to scramble at that point. Pat Hartman, also of NASBA, said that they've identified Nebraska, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas as the states where the pilot will take place. And I guess if they don't get enough candidates with those 4 states, Nevada, Tennessee, Virginia, and Kansas will be added to the list to get the 250 to 1,000 candidates to take the pilot. And they have conditions for the pilot: no international candidates, no one who needs accommodations, and they will be ready for the pilot once the technical issues are taken care of. But if the technical issues are not taken care of, they're not going to go forward. Once they do, if they have, they do get that far, then they're going to share the results with the boards and determine the plan going forward. At that point, they still have not defined what emergency means, and they'll continue additional technical refinements from there. There are questions too, once this is up, about availability, because they made a good point. Okay, you get it set up in, say, the end of 2022, but you don't have an emergency till end of 2024. You want to make sure that it will actually still be able to work at that point. So the availability and all that, they need to figure out a way to, I guess, test from time to time to make sure things are working with that. But that's it. Yeah, as I said, she emphasized if it's never ready, then we won't use it. And they want the exam to be uniform and all there. there. So that was, yeah, that's the only thing I had.
And if we're lucky and we've, you know, finally pretty much beaten this thing with no more big waves, it won't be quite as important.
Right, right. And then, yeah, accreditation, unfortunately, I probably should not, I should not have included that on this list. I thought I was going to have more to offer, but I agree with the chairman. I just did not.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me whether we need to do anything. I'll work with NASBA as far as changing our regs, because we do make notice of regional accreditation bodies and all. So whether that has to change, I do know when we met with them and that was them being, it was Dan Dustin and John Johnson, right?
John Johnson.
In March or April. At that point, they didn't think, they said we were okay. Did not need to change regs. So we'll just see. I think they're still trying to figure out what they're doing with accreditation. It sounds like things have changed.
This is Carla. I was on the commissioner on the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and they take the regulations you're talking about take a very broad view of accreditation. It doesn't have to be accounting accreditation. It's just an accredited institution. And I just want to second what John said, that just is not a problem in Connecticut. And with the kinds of candidates we would get for our CPA exam. So I don't think that's an issue we even really need to think much about.
Works for me.
Okay.
And then on the exam transition, you know, what I have for that is, yeah, the survey, according to John Decker from AICPA, right? The survey is coming tomorrow, but we'll see. I mean, he said July 7th, but you know, these things can be delayed. But yeah, when it comes out and we see what they want, I can forward that to all. And if the reply is necessary before or too close to the next meeting, we can do a special meeting.
By the way, if it helps, I don't know whether you still have it, but I still have the emails with the links and the password. If anybody wants to see the materials from the meeting or even the videos, I'd be glad to forward that.
I have them as well, so yeah, either of us.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, if anybody would like to see that.
You still won't be able to understand the accreditation one, but I agree with Carla. We don't need to worry about it. I don't think.
And they got the exam, the transition policy with the new exam with the evolution. What they're looking at right now is they are going to basically keep 3 of the 4 core, or 3 of the 4 current sections and make those the core. And they're going to remove the business environment and concepts section starting on January 1st, 2024. But now with the rule, what they decided though is if someone has passed the BEC before then, that it's still good for 18 months. So it doesn't drop off. They won't have to then find a discipline to do it. People still need to pass only 4 sections. If they have not passed the BEC by then they would have to take a discipline. And then if they have passed it and it rolls off after 18 months, then they would have to take a discipline at that point. So that's the general plan right now with those. And they're concerned that there might be a shorter testing windows for the disciplines. There's also concerns with now to work with our IT section and our licensing section, if the names changing or with the new names, if that's something that we need to just do technologically to make sure it's an issue with our licensing system and all. But you know, we have some time once we get better ideas as it gets closer what the specifics are. with those two. And there was a executive director meeting earlier in June. And no, actually, basically that was, it's what I went over what we said. So I said about the BEC dropping off or not, dropping off, and what it means for our system. So I don't have anything to add besides that.
And I guess we have reconsideration of the license application of David Katz.
Right, this is Mr. Katz. He was denied initially because of his the experience, and I just thought I'd give him a chance to present case, what he has himself in front of the board. And this is sort of like the way we handled someone who was coming up for reinstatement a couple of years ago, just trying to get the feel for the board before he would reapply. So that's what we're doing.
Hey, well, first of all, good morning, board. I appreciate the opportunity for this reconsideration. I would like to try to share my presentation that I've come up with. Let's see if that can, hopefully we won't have any, let's see if this works. So give me 1 second. Okay, I know that can the people, at least who are on the video side, can they see the document that is up on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
I can see it. This is Martha Triplett. I see it.
I can see it.
Carla Fox can see it.
Okay, great, thank you. So as Attorney Bonelli said, my CPA certification and license application was denied in March of 2020. And the specific reasons it was denied was that my experience was not garnered under a licensed CPA. And second, that some of the experience listed was over 10 years old and does not qualify. So I want to address both those denial reasons, but I want to start with denial reason number 1. So part of the what made me pursue my CPA license and certification had to do with my reading of the information that is contained on the CPA experience verification, the SBA 12 form. So I will read verbatim from that form. It's actually on page 3 of that form, and it says, pursuant to regulations, section 20-280-24G, if claiming experience that was not gained under a supervising CPA, the applicant has the burden of demonstrating that said experience was sufficient to qualify for licensure. So it was my understanding from reading that statement that again is on that SBA 12 form, that if your experience was not gained under a supervising CPA, that you would have the ability to present that experience to the board to see if that experience was sufficient to qualify for licensure. So I'd like to, if possible, have a discussion with the board regarding that statement. Basically, what I'm trying to understand is if the board is willing to hear the details of my experience and review that experience and to see if that experience meets the requirements of experience as required under the CPA regulations. I have not been supervised by a CPA over going back 20 years, maybe even 30 years. But I wanted to understand why that statement is in the application but at least in my situation, whether the board will be willing to hear about my experience, which I have listed in this document in great amount of detail, and I'll be happy to go through it, but I only want to go through that experience as if the board is going to consider that experience.
Sir, may I ask you something? This is Martha Triplett. Am I supposed to be scrolling down on this document?
No, I'm regrettably, only I can control it. So that's
okay.
the way. I'm sorry, but yeah, no, only I can control the scrolling in it. But I guess what I most of the document here contains information about my experience over the last 10 years as a CFO. I could go a little further. Obviously, as the CFO, I have not had the opportunity to be supervised as most CFOs are the senior financial executive in the company and cannot be, it's very difficult for them to be supervised by any CPA. So, I made a decision later in my career to pursue a CPA. I can discuss the reasons for that, but I made that decision, and it was based on the idea from my reading of that SBA 12 form that the board would consider my experience, and I feel that my experience more than meets the qualifications as required. I did always understood that I did not, that I was not supervised by a CPA, but that the statement is clear to me, at least clear to me, that says if the experience was not gained under a supervising CPA, that the applicant will have the burden of demonstrating that such experience was sufficient to qualify for licensure. So I just want to understand why that statement is in the SBA 12 form.
Okay, well, I thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything, so by not scrolling down, but thank you.
Sure.
Well, I think the statement is pretty clear cut. It gives it says it's a matter of judgment, and yes, you have the burden. I have no objection in hearing your case.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, I have worked over 30 years in the home healthcare industry in varying financial and accounting roles. But everything I'm going to talk about today is experience that has taken place in the last 8 years that I have been the CFO of All About You Home Care. I know that, further back experience doesn't pertain. And so that's why everything I'm specifically going to mention here has all this experience has taken place in the last 8 years. So I just want to make sure that is clear. So the item that I first want to go through is the idea that that as part of industry accounting experience, that you have to understand the industry that the company exists and the key issues that exist within that industry. So home healthcare, like many healthcare companies, one of the key issues is reimbursement. So reimbursement, particularly that we deal with at All About You Home Care, is reimbursement by Medicare and Medicaid. Now, as some of you may be familiar with, is Medicare and Medicaid often change the way they go about reimbursing agencies. They also often change they have rate cuts, very rarely rate increases, but rate cuts. And so as part of that, what I want to address specifically was in 2016, the Connecticut Medicaid program proposed a 15% rate cut for what are known as home health medication administration nursing visits. So that rate cut, which was ultimately did go through, had I had to prepare very analysis on what was going to be the exact impact of that that rate cut and how the agency was going to respond in terms of adjusting both direct and indirect costs, payroll costs for the nurses. There had to be quite a bit of savings that were going to offset this revenue loss by the agency. So what I have submitted let me just talk about this. A lot of the detailed analysis that I have submitted as backup to show the type of work I've done has confidential company data in it. So knowing that this Zoom call was filmed and was on video and did have the ability for people to look at, I felt that those exhibits, which show detailed financial information about All About You Home Care, that I was unable to show them. So what I have done, I have sent a separate document to Attorney Bonelli, which I'm not sure if he's had the opportunity. This all took place very quickly at the end of the holiday, right before the holiday weekend. I don't know if he's had an opportunity to distribute that yet, but it contains about 50 pages that show the type of work that I have prepared. So as I'm going through this, when it says, as it does on this item, that the actual analysis of the prepared analysis that I presented, that confidential document was sent to Attorney Bonelli. So he has that, and hopefully he will be able to share that with the board so you can actually see the analysis that I created. So I want to go on to item 2 there, applying accounting principles. When I joined All About You in September of 2013, the company at that time was using a cash modified basis for their financial statements. It was basically cash basis. They were reporting receivables from their payers, but that was basically the only non-cash items that they had on their financial statements, non-cash basis journal entries, I should say. So what I made the decision and I implemented fully based accrual statements. So those accrual based statements included accounting for deferred revenue. Under the Medicare regulations, there's quite a bit of deferred revenue that gets created by the way Medicare pays agencies. Again, if you have questions on that, I'll be happy to go through that. There was also the booking of both bad debt expense, as well as creating allowance for doubtful accounts, as well as implementing payroll accrual entries. So I took the company's
Hello.
Sorry. So I took the company's, the way the company was producing their financial statements and made them, I feel, to what they needed to be to really reflect the results of the company. So that is item, that's the next item. Before I go on, I just wanted to, I know I want to be sensitive to the board's time. So I just wanted to know if I should kind of move through this quickly, or if the board wants to give me, I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, if they could give me an idea of how much time I have to go through this.
Well, take what you need, but I think maybe if you could limit it to, say, 5 minutes.
Okay. So the next item is the preparation of the financial statements. So I prepare monthly, quarterly, and annual financial statements that are presented to the managing partners of the company. These financial statements, these internally prepared financial statements, are prepared on a patient service basis. We have three separate patient service offices at the company. And they also include.
I lost the connection.
Excuse me, sorry.
Hello?
Did we lose someone, or?
I think we're okay. You can continue, Mr. Council.
Okay.
I think everyone else is still on. It looks like our Zoom host lost connection for a minute, but we're okay.
Okay. So as I was saying, these office P&Ls also include allocation of corporate overhead. That was something I implemented. So what I have provided in Exhibit 2 is a comparison of the actual versus budgeted results for each of our offices, with a variance analysis that looks at all the significant changes, revenue and expense changes that have taken place between those budgeted and actual results. So I'm gonna, just because I know I only have 5 minutes, I'm gonna go to the next item. It's actually, the next item has to do with preparing cash flow projections, line of credit projections to make sure that our line of credit is adequate. And I've sent, I've included as Exhibit 4 projections that I created for the March to December 2019 period. These projections looked at 3 scenarios for revenue growth for the company, and what they meant in terms of our adequacy of our line of credit. It turned to a cash flow projection and line of credit. So to make sure that we would have adequate cash balances and line of credit balances to allow the company to manage through a difficult loss period that the company was having at that time. The next item is a Medicare Home Health Agency cost report. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, requires on an annual basis that all certified home health care agencies submit a cost report. So for the last, basically since 2013 through 2019, and I will be doing it soon for 2020, I prepare that cost report for the agency. That cost report, which I have included in this document, it provides statistical information, as well as actually calculates a fully allocated cost per discipline. Home health care providers, I don't know how familiar you are with home health care, but we provide skilled nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, medical social work, home health aid services. So the Medicare cost report allows, going through a series of worksheets, it allows for that fully allocated cost to each of those disciplines in order to calculate a cost per visit. CMS uses this data to decide on future reimbursement changes for the industry in general. So I have included here in Exhibit 5, the reason I've included it here, this is a public document, so I felt comfortable including it here. This is this detailed Medicare cost report. It goes on for 26 pages. It's a time-consuming process, as all of these requirements are, but it is something that like I said, this is the statistical information, and then it eventually works on worksheet C. It eventually works towards calculating the cost per visit The cost per visits for the, I'm gonna just flip to worksheet C. So what's worksheet B? Oops, B1. So, but again, it works towards calculating for the agency, as I said, under each of these disciplines, what the cost is there. You'll see for skilled nursing, the cost of each of those visits on a fully allocated basis, which is allocating all of the company overhead as well, is $136.46 for each skilled nursing visit. So this is very crucial information that is required to submit this. So now the next item, and probably will be my last item to present, is the work that I do with our external CPA firm. I am, as the CFO, I prepare all of the account reconciliations, all of the balance sheet account reconciliations. I prepare everything that the external CPA firm needs for their audits and reviews that they've conducted over the last 7 years at All About You. What I've given as an example, as one of those reconciliations, is our provision for bad debt reconciliation. What I prepare there is I prepare an aging that is an aging of our accounts receivable, and then a rate is applied based on how those accounts receivable have aged out. What is the potential for bad debt for each payer on a payer-specific basis? And so you will hopefully be able to see that type of analysis that I prepare for our external CPA firm. In regard to our external CPA firm, I have attached a letter from Rocco Guerrera, who's a partner this is our external CPA firm is Simeon Mack and Laurel. So I've worked over the last 7 years with both Rocco Guerrera and Cynthia Gimla, who's a principal there, and worked with them with all of their audits and reviews, both of our financial statements and our 401k audits. And they have, back when I submitted my application, they wrote a review of my the work that they've, the work that I have done in conjunction with them during these audits and reviews. And here is a copy of that letter that they they feel obviously that my work has been, again, I don't want to be in a position of bragging here, but they, obviously have, felt that I have demonstrated my knowledge of both accounting, the experience, the industry, and things of that nature. So, what I wanted to, in closing, I guess, to discuss with the board is that, I realize that I am not the typical CPA candidate. And so what I wanted to ask the board is that if the board just decides to deny my application because I have not been directly supervised by a CPA, what I wanted to ask the board is what kind of pathway does that allow for someone who has my type of experience, who can obviously, I feel, be a real asset to the CPA profession with my years of experience. What is the avenue for someone who is a CFO? What is the avenue that exists for them to be able to obtain a CPA license?
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody hear me? It seems to have frozen.
I can hear you.
I can hear you fine.
This is Martha. I
Hello?
can hear you.
Yes,
I can hear you, Carla.
Oh, thank you.
I can hear too.
Okay. I think that perhaps this is something we need to discuss separately.
I agree with that. This is Danny.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Katz. You've brought up, you know, a case, and in accordance with that, we will, I think, fairly consider it, but we need a little bit of time to discuss it.
Well, I appreciate that. If you have any, additional questions, about my specific questions about my experience, or if I could submit additional documentation. Obviously, I have other CPA firms that I work with through other companies that I do work with. So I have, and again, during the last 10 years, so I can also submit other references from other CPAs that I have worked with at CPA firms in the last 10 years. So I'll be happy to submit any additional documentation that you may require. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, I don't know whether we should go in executive session, schedule a discussion. Actually, can you take us off your
Yeah, can
your
you stop
view
the
here,
screen?
David?
Yeah, I can log out of the, would you like me to just exit the meeting?
That's up to you, but we need to stop the screen share.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Is that, okay.
That's better. I'd like to give it some thought. I don't know about other members. Do we have a copy of this document of yours?
I think it was just emailed by Frank, right, Frank?
Okay, I haven't been able to
Yes.
look at my email.
Yeah.
I think that,
Yeah.
yeah, we can take a look at the document and bring it up.
Is that going to be today or at a?
I would suspect I'd like some time to despite the presentation, to go through it and give it some thought. So if everybody'd like to deal with it today, that's fine. Otherwise, I would put it to the next meeting.
My preference is to go through the documents and read everything, read all the additional information provided that Frank just emailed to us.
Okay. Anybody else? Do we need a motion for that, Frank?
Why don't we, just to make sure we do that? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, why don't we
Okay, I
have a
think-
motion to,
Okay.
yeah.
I can't make a motion.
If I were to make a motion, would it be to defer to the next meeting? Or should we have a special meeting or what?
It's up to you. I think deferring to the next meeting. If we do have a special meeting for the summary of, or the, excuse me, the survey, we can fold it into that. Or otherwise, we'll do it the next meeting.
Well, I make a motion to defer to the next official meeting of the board, which may or may not be the next regularly scheduled meeting. So we could put it
Okay.
on the special, an explanation. We could put it on the
Understood.
special meeting agenda, yeah.
Do we have a second?
I second
I'll
that.
second that.
Okay. Any, have a motion and a second? Do we have any further discussion? Okay. I'll turn a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, do we have any comments or concerns of any person present today?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have one
Yes.
piece of new business
Oh,
to add. We did receive, again, never fails right after the agenda went out, a CPE extension request. It's Chia Hao Chen, also known as Fiona Chen. So this would need a 2/3 vote of the board to put it on the agenda to consider it.
okay.
A point of order, should we, if we're gonna vote on that, does it matter whether Mr. Katz is still on the line or not? Or
It's
in
still-
the meeting?
I don't think it does. It's still part of our public meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
Do you need a motion to put it on the agenda,
I
Frank?
believe so.
All right, so I'll make the motion to put it on the agenda. This is Pete.
Second?
I'll second that. This is Danny Line.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Looks like we have two significant things.
Okay, thank you. We received this request and it is to have it extended to December 31st, 2021. Currently, there is a blanket extension to July 31st for everybody, right? So, but she's aware of that. But her request is due to limited hours, she's able to commit to work and professional activities per week. She's currently pregnant with high risk issues, and she does have the doctor's note on that. And because of that, she's limited to the number of hours she can work in order to have reduce bed rest and reduce stress and have enough bed rest. So she's been limited even during the busy season with the pandemic due to last year's extension, leaving only 7 months for this year. I've not been able to get enough credits at a reasonable pace. Additionally, I have scheduled actually C-section for August 2nd, maybe earlier. That makes her believe that may not be able to finish the required credits in time, like the extension to December 31st. She has 11 credits so far and obviously needs another 29. She had the extension request form was attached, plus which basically had a note, which is basically what I just read, plus the doctor's confirmation of the condition.
Well, sounds like a valid, extraordinary reason to me. Any comments? Anybody wish to make a?
I move to extend till December the 31st of 2021.
I second that.
Okay, do we have any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, without being flipped, that would be like voting against apple pie. Okay, any further new business, Frank? Good, thank you.
Not for me.
Okay, does anybody else have any new business that they'd like to bring up? Does anybody present today have any comments or concerns that they'd like to add?
Frank, could I just ask, is there any progress on filling the open seats on the board?
So we have a call into the governor's office to find out what is taking it so long, because it's been months, and that's
Okay.
usually takes a while, but not this long. and someone is looking into it for me. So I should have, if we don't already have appointments, I should have a response for you for the next meeting.
Okay.
And in addition to that, I would like to go on the record. I said something before we started, but I would like to thank the DCP staff for their efforts, including those from, in particular, the State Board of Accounts, but also Leslie O'Brien, who's their legislative liaison for DCP. The amount of work that was done to get the legislation through this year and then the regulations fast-tracked was just fantastic. As I had said earlier, I have worked on regs a number of times, and when they go to the Regulation Review Committee, you're never quite sure what's going to happen. So we had started to reach out early with calls and letters to make sure they understood why we supported them. And each person I touched base with was aware of the regulations, which in and of itself is not common, and then the importance of them, the set of regs that came before them. So great work on the part of DCP, including the SBOA staff as a whole. And I would just like to make sure that the board members are aware of that. I've never seen anything move so quickly towards the end there after we had the meeting with staff and John, et cetera. They just flew through the Attorney General's office, the Regulations Review Committee, everything. It was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to add to that because, you know, we used to have a joke that Connecticut was the slowest in the nation on regulations. And the team at DCP is basically, you're going to lose that position if you haven't already lost it. And I think it's wonderful that we do have a slow process, but you've kept everything on track, going smoothly, no hiccups, no drops. Thank you. I guess there's only.
Thank you. You do a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Good
all.
job.
Okay. Anything further? If not, looks like given everything that's going on in the profession and that we're starting with two significant individual issues, we've got a full meeting coming up. So given that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Tim, I'll make that motion. Jimmy.
Thank you, Tim. Second.
Second, Martha.
Thank you, Martha. And no discussion allowed on a motion to adjourn. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. And have a good day. And maybe next time we'll be in person.
Hope so.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.